So today we are going to talk about solving systems of equations using the substitution method. So before we get into that, make sure you have your heading on your note sheet. So this goes in your notebook on the top of the next page. So you're going to put the page number according to your table of content, which you can find out in class, or you can send me a message. Your name, the date that's posted in Canvas for this assignment, and your title, which is Notes 2x2 Systems Substitution Method. So if you need to pause the video to get this filled in, that might be a good idea. So we're going to write some steps to use the substitution method. And what I mean by systems would be two equations with two letters, like an X and a Y. Okay? So we're going to write the steps out first, and then we're going to do an example. So there are 3 steps. So you're going to write steps. Here's step 1. And if I'm going too fast, you can always pause the video. So step 1 is to solve for a variable. Solve for a variable to get a letter alone. To get a letter alone. So I'm going to do an example down below while we're doing this. So I'm going to move down and I'm going to put example A right here. Can you write this example for me? 2x plus 7y equals 8. And underneath that, can you write x equals negative 5y plus 7? So for step 1, to get the variable alone, we need a letter by itself, like x equals or y equals. I already see in the equation that I have an x equals alone, so I'm going to circle that. So step 1 is really done for us. We'll do one example where we need to get x alone or a y alone. Here's step 2. Substitute, and I'll move my hand in a minute. What you solved for in place of that variable, in the second equation, and solve. So here's what that means. You are going to take, this was your equation where your letter was alone, x equals this. I'm going to find that letter in the other equation, and here it is. I'm going to substitute what I know x equals from this equation right into this equation. Since I know that x equals negative 5y plus 7, I can change this x to negative 5y plus 7. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move this down. I am going to rewrite this equation, but insert this in place of the x. So it's 2, not x anymore, in parentheses, negative 5y plus 7. Whatever I insert, I want parentheses. Now I'm going to bring the rest of the equation over. 7y equals 8. So you're changing that x to what you know x equals in the other equation. Now we can solve it since we only have one letter. So I'm going to distribute. So we have negative 10y. 2 times 7 is plus 14. I bring down the 7y and equals 8. Next step, I can combine like terms. I can combine my y's. This is a negative 10. Negative 10 plus 7 is negative 3. So we have negative 3y plus 14 equals 8. 2 more steps. I need to get the 14 away from the y. So instead of plus 14, I'm going to subtract 14 from both sides. 14's cancel. So we get negative 3y equals 8 minus 14 is negative 6. Last step, I'm going to divide both sides by the number attached to the y. That's negative 3. Negative 3's cancel out, and we get y equals 2. So we just solved for one letter. The problem is there were 2 letters in the beginning. So we know what y is. We have to find out what x is. So here's step 3. And if you don't have room for step 3, you can put it somewhere that where you can fit it. Step 3, substitute your answer. Substitute your answer. Into one equation. Into one equation. To solve for the other variable. The other variable. So a lot of writing, but want to make sure we have all the directions. Okay, so we know what y is. Now we need to find out what x is. So I'm going to pick an equation, and I'm going to change the y in that equation to 2, since that's one of my answers. So the equation that looks the easiest to me to deal with is the bottom one, because there's less numbers involved. So I'm going to rewrite the bottom equation. It does not matter which one you choose. Since I know that y is 2, I'm going to change this y to 2. So I have x equals negative 5 times 2 plus 7. Now I'm going to figure out what this is. I have to get the x alone, which it is, but I need to simplify the side. So I'm going to multiply. So x equals negative 5 times 2 is negative 10 plus 7. Now, since they're on the same side, I can combine. Negative 10 plus 7 is negative 3. So my x value is negative 3. So you can leave your answer like this, or you can write it as a point. The x goes first, so negative 3 goes first, 2 goes next. Okay? Now I'm going to do one more example. If you notice, I've ran out of room, so I'm going to go to the back of my page. You can continue if you have room, or you can go to the back as well. So here's our last example. So for example B, can you put 3x plus 2y equals negative 9? In the second example, can you put x plus y equals negative 7? So we're going to do those steps, and we're going to solve these equations. Our goal is to figure out what x and y are. So step 1, if you look at the top of the notes or the front, it says solve for the variable to get the letter alone. So what we need to do, we need to get an equation to show us x equals or y equals. I do not see that. So I need to get a letter alone. I'm going to go for the letter that doesn't have anything in front of it. I call that a bare letter, so like an imaginary 1. So the equation where I see a y by it, or an x or a y with no number in front of it, would be here. So what I'm going to do is get this y alone. So I'm going to move everything to the other side. So we're not solving, we're just trying to get this alone. So to move this 2x over, I'm going to subtract 2x. So my 2x's cancel out. So my new equation would be y equals negative 2x minus 7. And again, the reason why we did that is we need a letter alone. Since the letter's alone, now we can go to step 2. We have this y that's all by itself. Step 2 says substitute what you solve for in place of the variable in the second equation. So I know that y equals negative 2x minus 7. That means in the other equation, it also equals negative 2x plus 7, because these equations are together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring down my first equation, and I'm going to change my y to what y equals in the second equation. So I'm going to bring this down. So we have 3x plus, now instead of 2 times y, it's going to be 2 times negative 2x minus 7. Notice I'm using parentheses. Then I'll bring down the rest of it, equals negative 9. So again, I took what y equals and I replaced that with what y equals in this equation. Since they're all the same letter, I can solve. So I'm going to distribute. I'm going to bring down the 3x, distribute the 2, so 2 times negative 2x is negative 4x. 2 times negative 7 is negative 14. And I bring down the equals 9. Now I can combine like terms. These are x's, so I can combine them. 3 minus 4 is negative 1, so we have negative 1x, or you can put just negative x, minus 14 equals negative 9. I need to get the x alone, so I'm going to add 14 to both sides. 14's cancel. I bring down the negative 1, so negative 1x equals negative 9 plus 14 is 5. Last step, I need to get the x alone, so I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1. Negative 1's cancel out, so I'm going to bring down the x. 5 divided by negative 1 is negative 5. And again, if I'm going too fast, you can pause at any time. We are not done because if you look at the original equations, there's an x and a y. So we have to find the second answer. So step 3, substitute your answer into 1. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, my dog is barking. So now I'm going to take an equation. The second one looks easiest because there's less numbers involved, so I'll rewrite the second equation. And again, it doesn't matter which one you use. So I'm going to change the x to my answer, which was negative 5. So we have 2 times negative 5 plus y equals negative 7. All right. Now I'm going to solve, so I'm going to multiply. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. Negative 10 plus y equals negative 7. Last step, I'm going to get the y alone. I see a negative 10, so to move it, I'm going to add 10. 10's cancel out. And I'm going to bring down my y equals negative 10 plus 7 is 3. So those are my two answers. I can keep it like that, or I can write it as a point. X goes first, negative 5, then a 3. You can always check by plugging these numbers in to see if they work, so you can substitute your answers to make sure that they equal the number at the end. Please make sure you send a picture of this to Canvas or Remind so you get credit for this assignment.